Oliver Hardy is one of the great comedians of all time, and his famous comedies with Stan Laurel will always be remembered by fans. After all the fame and laughs, what did Oliver Hardy have to deal with as he got older? Watch this movie to learn about his difficult life and how it went from the heights of fame to a tragic end. Oliver Hardy was born on January 18, 1892, in Harlem, Georgia. He is now a hero in the history of movies, especially comedies. Aside from being funny when you least expect it, he's also known for making people laugh in ironic, awkward, and sometimes very silly situations. But not many people know that Oliver Hardy did a lot of different jobs before he became a movie star. He worked as a secretary and a musician, but his love of music and theater from a young age set the stage for his playing career. Hardy grew up in Georgia in a middle-class family. He was educated in a stable home setting and encouraged to follow his artistic interests. Hardy got his start as an actor pretty late in life, but his love of music and theater led him to the movies. During the beginning of his work, he mostly starred in silent movies. Over time, he became known for playing funny and memorable roles. During the silent film era, Hardy quickly became a well-known face in Hollywood movies. His face could make a lot of funny faces, and he had the charm of a guy with a round body. He started playing minor parts. Hardy taught himself how to act and got better at it. Even though his first parts were small, they helped him build a strong base and made him one of the most popular comedians of the time. But Oliver Hardy's career really took off in 1927, when he started working with Stan Laurel. Even though both of them had some success in the past, it wasn't until they were in Battle of the Century together that they became famous, that this business partnership was made public. This was a big turning point that set this famous couple on the path to fame in the history of movies. With their own brand of comedy, this pair made moments in each movie that people will never forget. Oliver Hardy and Stan Laurel were a great couple, even though they have very different personalities. In many of his roles, Hardy portrays a big, strong man who always ends up in bad situations. On the other hand, Stan Laurel portrays a guy who is thin, naive, and easily hurt. The difference between these two characters makes events so funny that you can't help but laugh. Why did Laurel and Hardy become comedy icons? Because they were friends and got along so well. They made great movies together, like Sons of the Desert, Way Out West, and The Music Box, which people will remember for a long time. Not only did they have signature funny moments, but they also had great chemistry, were great actors, and could make subtle funny situations. Not only did people like their movies back then, but people still do. Oliver Hardy and Stan Laurel were at the top of their game in the 1930s, when they became known as Laurel and Hardy, a pair that will always be associated with comedies and movies. Success and career peak. Their fame didn't just come from movies. It spread around the world, giving both a huge audience and an endless supply of love. There were two different acting styles that worked so well together that they were the biggest stars in Hollywood during the golden age of movies. When it came to movies, this pair made a big effect on everyone, from their first ones to their best ones. Their job is not only a reflection of each person's career, but also a sign of unity, creativity, and great acting skills. They are not only a funny couple, but also artists who have helped the comedy genre grow in the movie business. Stan Laurel's silly, innocent personality and Oliver Hardy's awkward, cute personality worked well together to make Laurel and Hardy a hit. The funny situations they make up always make me laugh so hard I can't stop. Whether it's a simple scene or something more complicated. Because their personalities and playing styles are so different, they make a great couple, and each of their movies is a must-see. The movies not only make you laugh, but they also show sincerity and sophistication by making fun of funny situations, especially the difference between the two major characters. Their movies: The Music Box, 1932, Sons of the Desert, 1933, and Way Out West, 1937, became big hits all over the world, not just in the United States. In The Music Box, the two did famous comedy tricks with a grand piano that made for an outstanding movie scene. The funny parts of this movie really stood out, but the magical scenes made by the director and the two main stars really showed how creative they are. The movie Sons of the Desert, which has both funny and sad scenes, showed how close the two actors are to each other. One of the most famous action comedy movies of all time, Way Out West, with its funny action, showed how good Oliver Hardy was as an actor. The artistry of Stan Laurel. It's important to note that Oliver Hardy didn't write or direct the show himself, but their success rests on how well they can work together. Their movies always have a unique style that is based on making everyday events funny in a very creative and sophisticated way. Of two very different personalities has developed a very special brand of humor that makes people laugh over and over again. One thing that makes this pair stand out is their ability to take small things that happen in everyday life and turn them into jokes that people can't stop telling. They're not just funny people, they're also great artists who have given us some truly unique moments. This pair has also won a lot of awards and been praised by both reviewers and audiences. People not only loved Oliver Hardy and Stan Laurel's movies, but they also revered them as stars at many award shows, including the prestigious Hollywood Awards. This award not only recognized their playing skills, but also made them famous in the movie business. Many people still remember their figures from their hit movies, and their movies are now an important part of film history. Their work is not only important in the movie business, but it's also a sign of creativity and joy in people's cultural lives around the world. Their works have stood the test of time, and their names are still talked about as a source of pride for Hollywood movies. Oliver Hardy had a lot of problems in his personal and work life. These problems were a big part of his life and career, especially in the later years of his career. Even though Hardy was well known and loved, it wasn't always easy for him to deal with the problems that life brought him. His health, especially his weight, was one of the hardest things in Oliver Hardy's life. When Hardy was at the top of his game, he stopped working out and started eating badly, which caused him a lot of health problems later on. His busy work schedule and fame did not help his health. Because of his heart problems and gout, it was hard for him to fly and go to film shoots. That made Hardy more and more tired and weak, which not only limited his ability to work, but also made it hard for him to act on set. By the late 1940s, Hardy's health was getting worse. This was even more clear when he started having a hard time getting to film shoots. Even so, he kept working, even though his health was getting worse. These problems slowly got in the way of his work, making it hard for him to keep up the image of one of Hollywood's biggest comic stars. In addition, Oliver Hardy had a lot of problems in his personal life, especially in his relationships and marriages. Hardy was married 3 times, but none of them were happy endings. His first marriage to Virginia Lucille Jones lasted for a while, but it ended because of problems and unsolved issues. His wife and he lived apart for many years because of the stress in their marriage, and they finally got a divorce in 1937. Mildred versus Eustace, Hardy's second marriage to Mildred, also had a lot of problems, even though it lasted longer. At first, they seemed like the perfect pair, but as their family and work lives got busier, their relationship started to suffer. Hardy's health problems and changes in jobs made things hard for them, and in the late 1940s, they got a divorce. Oliver Hardy's last marriage to Lula McGill, ended when he died in 1957. It had an impact on his health and business, though. Even though Hardy's family loved each other very much, things were not always easy. It was hard on his mental and emotional health as he got older because of all of his problems and changes in jobs. Also, Oliver Hardy and Stan Laurel had some rough times together, even though they had a lot of fun together. There were changes in the movie business in the late 1940s that hurt both of their jobs, and this made their relationship worse. They were close for a long time, but eventually they started to argue about work and personal things. One thing that made them angry was that they had different ways of doing work. Laurel was stressed about having to work alone or replace Hardy's parts as Hardy's health and shooting got worse. The unhappiness and tiredness caused by the work process also pushed the two further apart, even though they still love and respect each other. Also, as acting skills changed and new forms of entertainment came out, their old movies became less useful. Both of them felt stressed out, and their relationship started to be put to the test. They later worked together on some projects, but their relationship wasn't the same as it used to be. When Laurel and Hardy became popular, most movies were still silent, and their brand of comedy was seen as the best in its field. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, however, the film business went through a big change that affected how movies were made and how they were shown. Color movies and talkies have made things very hard for mute movie stars like Oliver Hardy and Stan Laurel. The color cinema opened up new doors, but it also made the silent movies that Laurel and Hardy were famous for useless. Also, scripts and conversation became more important when talkies came out, which made the pair's silent comedies less popular. Because of these changes, they had to adapt and change their style to keep people's attention, which wasn't always easy. Their careers slowly went downhill because of competition from other movies and a failure to keep up the success they had before. In the end, Oliver Hardy was almost unable to handle all of these problems. One of the most important things that hurt Oliver Hardy's work and personal life in his later years was that his health was getting worse. After having a lot of success with Stan Laurel, when he was at the top of his game, Oliver Hardy started having major health issues. In the late 1940s, his weight started to bother people. Hardy dealt with issues linked to his weight, gout, and his heart. These issues started to get in the way of his work, making it hard for him to be in scenes and work for long amounts of time. Gout was one of the worst things that could happen to Hardy. There was pain and stiffness in his joints, mostly in his feet, which made it hard for him to move. This made it very hard for him to film because his part needed him to move around and do funny things quickly. In addition, his heart problems made him tired, and it was hard for him to keep up with his work. Even though he had major health problems, he kept working. He didn't want to leave the stage or the filming even though he knew his health was getting worse. During this time, Hardy was hospitalized several times, which showed that he was not only sick but also that his business was going downhill. Along with finding it hard to stay physically fit, Hardy wasn't able to work on big movie projects like he used to. There weren't as many chances to work on new movies, and as the movie business changed with new playing styles and higher physical demands on its stars, he lost his place. Oliver Hardy's career took a hit when he could no longer keep playing in big comedies, and he didn't have much of a chance of going back to the big screen in his later years. His hospitalizations and physical decline made it impossible for him to keep playing the parts he had been known for throughout his career. For someone like Hardy, this was especially hard, whom he had worked in movies his whole life and whose job was an important part of his life. At the same time, Hardy's close co-star Stan Laurel's career kept having problems. However, the changes in his parts and projects didn't have as much of an effect on his health as they did on Hardy's. Even though they worked together on small projects after Hardy's health got worse, his job loss could never be made up for. Hardy was shocked to find himself cut off from the movie business, where he had been a star. In his later years, Hardy had difficulties with his health and also felt alone and lost. His job, which he had built up over the years, was now just a memory, and chances to get back on screen slowly disappeared. Because of his bad health and the difficulty of keeping up with his job, he was sad and let down, especially when he couldn't keep working with Stan Laurel, who used to be his co-worker. Oliver Hardy's life was marked by a terrible end. His health got worse, and he lost his job, which painted a sad and harsh picture of the end of a movie star. Not only was Oliver Hardy's death on August 7, 1957, at age 65 sad for his family, but it was also sad for the movie business and movie fans all over the world. He had been sick for a long time, so his death wasn't a surprise. But it left a huge hole in the hearts of those who loved him and worked with him throughout his long and successful career. Hardy died in Las Vegas, where he had spent his last years in pain and silence, unable to do the work he loved or go on stage and do the famous comedy acts that made him famous. People who knew Hardy and loved him deeply were saddened by his death. That person who lost their life partner was his wife, Lula McGill. They had good and bad times together. In Hardy's last years, though, Lula was there to care for and help him. She died with him and was the last person to see him. His close friends, especially Stan Laurel, were also very sad about his death. Their relationship had its ups and downs, but their friendship stayed strong and long-lasting. In the years after Hardy's death, Stan Laurel often talked about how sad he was to lose his beloved co-star. He also had a hard time dealing with not being able to work with Hardy, who was a close friend and with whom he had made many great movies. People in the movie business have also replied with moving tributes and tributes. People who have loved and admired Laurel and Hardy for decades have said they are so sad they can't even put it into words. Not only did they talk about how funny Hardy and Laurel were together, but they also praised Oliver Hardy's skill and kindness. People were sad about the death of one of the most famous comedy stars in movie history, and his fans held many memorials to remember his work. People who worked in the movie business saw Oliver Hardy as a symbol of fun and devotion to the job. After he died, people who had worked on movies with him said how sorry they were. Celebrities, like James Finlayson, and directors and producers who worked with Laurel and Hardy all paid tribute to Oliver Hardy, calling him a great co-worker and true friend. Stan Laurel's moving words to honor and remember his life partner may have been the most moving tribute. Stan wrote in a letter after Hardy died, "Olivia was my best friend ever, and I'll always remember how much fun we had together. I can't picture my life without him. He will always be in my heart." Oliver Hardy was a great actor on screen, and he was also a wonderful person in real life. Not only did his death end a golden age in the movie business, it was also a huge loss for comedy and the big screen. His movies, which he made with Stan Laurel, lived on in the hearts of fans and became classics that inspired new generations. Oliver Hardy's legacy and tributes. Oliver Hardy's life ended in sadness, but his work in movies and comedies will live on forever. The comedies he made with his close friend Stan Laurel are still loved today because they were such important parts of the genre. Laurel and Hardy's movies, with their funny action scenes and close friendship between the two leads, continue to inspire artists and moviegoers today. Even though the movie business has changed, everyone admires the skill, harmony, and originality that this pair brought to their work. In the past of movies, Oliver Hardy's sense of humor and calm but charming acting have created unforgettable moments. He showed that you need more than just humor to be funny. You also need to be a real acting ability between the actors and the viewers. Funny scenes in well-known movies like Sons of the Desert, Way Out West, and The Music Box not only make you laugh, but they also show deep truths about people. These movies are still very popular among movie fans, even though a lot of time has passed. They are classic examples of the silent comedy type. After Oliver Hardy died, his legacy lives on in the movies he was in and in the memorial events, monuments, and awards that are given to honor his many services to the film industry. Oliver Hardy Day, a Memorial Day held every year in his home state of Georgia, is one of the important events. People who like Laurel and Hardy are getting together to honor one of the greats of the movie business. A monument to Oliver Hardy was also built in Harlem, Georgia, the place where he grew up. This statue not only shows respect for his work, but it's also a spot where new generations can learn about the man who made them laugh in his life. Some fun and games. There are Laurel and Hardy festivals and exhibitions in many countries, and their movies are still shown on many foreign TV channels, especially at classic film festivals. There are also prestigious awards named after comedians like Oliver Hardy, who have had a big impact on the movie business. Many groups, including the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, have given him awards and honors for his work as a way of saying thank you for making important contributions to the growth of comedy. Oliver Hardy's impact can also be seen in the way he has influenced comedians and young actors today. Many modern entertainers say that Laurel and Hardy were a big influence on their work. I admire how they can make events funny, how subtle they are as actors, and how they can show emotion without using dialogue. Stars like Steve Martin, Jim Carrey, and Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Bean have all said that they learned a lot from Laurel and Hardy's movies. A lot of artists still use the style that Hardy and Laurel created, which is a mix of serious and funny humor. The way they use physical comedy and dramatic events in their movies has become an influence on modern comedies, especially those with Ben Stiller, Adam Sandler, and other comedy stars. Hardy has influenced more than just comedians. He has also influenced producers and directors. His and Laurel's creative movies opened up new ways to make people laugh, showing that funny movies can be more than just funny. They can also tell touching, emotional stories that people can easily relate to. Their movies have taught filmmakers a lot about how to make characters grow and how to show relationships between characters, which is an important part of making great works. What is it about these movies that makes you remember them? Please tell us what you think in the space below. Please get in touch with us. Also, don't forget to like the video and follow the station to get more cool videos. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next film.